A historic House floor vote on legalizing medical marijuana puts the measure now in the Senate's hands. The Senate votes to diminish the governor's power in hiring a state transportation secretary and the process for developing road plans. Abortion restriction measures gain traction, major reforms to public assistance are under discussion, and a contentious voter photo ID bill is nearing the finish line on day 31 of the 2020 Kentucky General Assembly in regular session. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Legislative Update tonight. I'm Renee Shaw. So tonight's big story. For the first time, the Kentucky House votes on a medical marijuana legalization bill that will let doctors recommend weed to patients with certain medical conditions determined by a new regulatory board, and it sets up a licensing and regulatory framework. Conditions that research has clinically proven to benefit, chronic pain, epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, nausea, and vomiting, would be a part of the list developed by the board under an approved floor amendment today. Patients for whom cannabis is recommended would have to be registered card holders with the state health cabinet. Louisville Republican Jason Nemes's House Bill 136 wouldn't let patients smoke pot for medical purposes.
House Bill 136, when it is passed, which I hope that it is, will be the tightest medical marijuana bill in the country. Testifying last week, the gentleman from Florida came up and said that he looks at every state's medical marijuana bill, and he looks for 7 things that are in each bill. And those things show that whether a bill is responsible or not. Responsible as being well regulated and also available to patients. And he noted that House Bill 136 will be the first bill in the country that has all 7. So he says immediately once we pass this bill, his organization and organizations like his will consider Kentucky's at the top of the heap.
The bill sets up licenses for marijuana growers, processors that take the raw material and make it into a final product, dispensaries that could only sell medical marijuana and not other goods, and safety testers. For jurisdictions that don't want cannabis operations in their communities, they could opt out. Public usage is forbidden under the bill, and it would be unlawful for the product to be improperly packaged. There were more than a dozen floor amendments filed to the bill. 8 or so were approved. One of those would prohibit vaping of medical marijuana for those under age 21. Lexington Republican Stan Lee believes the measure will lead to legalized pot smoking, and he voted against it.
If this passes, it won't be a year before the attempt will be to the smoking's better. So we need to legalize that next. Now, I see a lot of heads nodding, and I see a lot of people who are avoiding eye contact, and I get that. But I've been here for a couple years now, and I can tell you this is how this process works, and that's why this history, Mr. Speaker, is important, because it is a progression. And then if we get smoking for medical marijuana purposes, what's going to be next? If it truly is medicine, then let's let it be studied. Let's let the FDA get a hold of it. Let's let it be regulated the way other medicines are. Let's let pharmacies, gentlemen from Laurel, dispense it. And let's handle it that way.
Some critics of legalizing medical marijuana say it should be prescribed by a doctor and filled by a pharmacist. Cannabis is a Schedule I drug under federal law, meaning it's deemed to have no current medical use and a high potential for abuse. Pharmacist and Green Up Republican Danny Bentley says marijuana's federal classification presents legal tripwires for House Bill 136. It's a sentiment also echoed by Representative Chris Fugate, a former law enforcer.
In 1970, I started in a pharmacy as an intern. And at the same time, I took an oath that I would protect the Constitution and follow the laws, which meant the Controlled Substance Act was being written that year. And I followed that law for 45 years, really 50 years now. I never broke that DEA law. Now, this don't have anything with data. This don't have anything with case reports. This really don't have anything to do with that bill, except my own integrity, I didn't break the law for 45 to 50 years, and I never had a citation from the DEA or from the State Board of Pharmacy. Y'all understand? So why should I vote yes today and break my own integrity?
If I ask the general public, did you know that medical marijuana is a cash-only or credit card business that most banks in Kentucky can't take the proceeds from because they're federally licensed? Most people in Kentucky would say, that sounds fishy to me. From my law enforcement background, if you look at Senate Bill 1 that's coming to us soon, we are encouraging law enforcement of Kentucky to work with the federal agents in enforcing federal law in cities that would be sanctuary cities. But in House Bill 136, we're saying to our local law enforcement and Kentucky State Troopers, don't worry about the marijuana Schedule 1 deal. We don't want you to enforce that part. What does that send our law enforcement?
Opponents also argue that legalizing medical marijuana opens up another access point of addiction by youth and that it could eventually yield to recreational marijuana. Pharmacist and substance abuse prevention educator Robert Goforth held back emotions in sharing his caregiving and guardianship of his brother with cerebral palsy, who suffers from Parkinson's-like symptoms.
And if I can give him a little bit of relief from the FDA-approved medication that has caused those adverse side effects for him to control those conditions, I'm going to do it. I have to do it. I'm his guardian. I have custody of him. I watch him suffer on a regular basis. I watch him be so embarrassed to talk to new people that don't know him, that he holds his hand because it shakes so much. And some of you folks have met him. You've seen him. And because the FDA, like some folks have said in here, are dragging their feet, political, financial, whatever's holding them back from doing it to allow the research to be done to bring these products to the market. Why are we going to continue to keep those barriers up?
After nearly 2 hours of debate, Representative Jason Nemes's House Bill 136 cleared the House 65 to 30 and now heads to the Senate, where its fate is uncertain.